Welcome to the Big Money Questions show. I'm Rachel Rickard-Strauss, personal finance editor at This Is Money. This week, it is a whopper, kid you not. It is, according to Max Tegmark, who's here to talk to us today, it is the most important question of our time. I'd go further even. I think it is the biggest question that we are not asking. So that's why we're going to do it and see where we should go from there. So, artificial intelligence, is it ever going to be cleverer than humans? And what will that mean? What will it mean for our jobs, for our lifestyles, for our economy? Max, thank you so much for joining us. I should say Max has just written a book about this, which has garnered praise from Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk and me in that beautiful trio. And he's just written a book on that, and he's also a professor of physics at MIT and has co-founded the Future of Life Institute. There. Max, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can we start with the massive question, is AI going to be at some point cleverer than humans?
I think it's very likely, yeah, but don't take my word for it. There have been a number of surveys of the world's top AI researchers, and that's really the prevailing view. The median guess people have is that maybe some decades from now, machines will be able to be better at us, not just at playing chess and Go and stuff like that, but really at everything. And I think many people still dismiss this as science fiction because they think of intelligence as something mysterious that can only exist inside of biological organisms like us. But from my perspective as a physicist, intelligence is simply information processing performed by elementary particles moving around according to the laws of physics. And there's absolutely nothing in the laws of physics that says that we can't do that in ways that are even much more intelligent than the way our brains do it.
So what would it look like then? Because as you say, we've had for some time AI that is capable of beating world chess champions, all sorts of games. You know, you pit me against the most primitive of calculators and it's going to win. So what are we talking about here? What's the difference between sort of isolated incidents of AI being more intelligent than us and something more general?
There are two differences. One of them is that when we got dethroned in chess, for example, by IBM's Deep Blue beating Garry Kasparov, that intelligence was programmed into the machine by people who knew how to play chess, and it simply won because it could think faster and remember more. In contrast, when we got dethroned at this Asian board game of Go recently, that intelligence was learned. It wasn't programmed in at all. All of the 3,000 years of human Go wisdom, millions of games, the machine figured out from scratch by just playing against itself for 3 days. Much like children learn. So that's the first difference. Machine learning is really causing the field to explode. And the second difference is that whereas successes so far in AI have tended to be very narrow intelligence, like pocket calculators or a car that can drive itself, but neither of them can even cook decent pasta, right? A child can, in contrast, get quite good at anything given enough time. That's the holy grail of deep learning and AI, to try to get intelligence which can teach itself to be broad and learn anything. And this is what I think we're going to be actually experiencing here on Earth in perhaps 30 years. And I think it's going to be the biggest change in the history of humanity.
One of the things in the book that I found most striking, you talking about that game of Go, was that AI learned ingenuity and creativity, attributes that we really think of as human. You know, it's almost less threatening that computers can do all these sorts of other things, because there are few things that we allow ourselves to think of as human. But even in that game and in other areas, you describe AI becoming creative.
That's right. We have to be very cautious of using our own vanity when predicting the future. We used to think that only living things could take action on the world deliberately, and the muscles and so on. Then we figured out how to build better muscles out of machines, and we got the Industrial Revolution. Then we thought, well, intelligence, that's something truly human. And now machines are gradually starting to do that too and replacing us on the job market with it. So we take refuge in creativity. Oh, maybe that's something machines can't do. But in fact, when AlphaGo beat Lee Sedol, it made this spectacular move at one point, shattering 3,000 years of Go wisdom. And this unorthodox move is what 50 game moves later actually ended up winning at the game. And many Go players said this was the most creative move they had ever seen. This shows that creativity too is simply information processing. And we shouldn't get on our high horses and think that you have to be made of carbon to do this. In fact, I think this kind of carbon chauvinism, this idea that you have to be made of carbon atoms to be smart, is ready for retirement.
Could you talk us through what is almost too intangible to do, but what the world could look like if we get to this scenario where AI is more intelligent than humans?
I actually don't like when people ask what will happen in this future, as if we're just some sort of pathetic passive bystanders sitting here waiting to see what the future is going to do to us. We are the engineers building this future as a society, and that's why I spent so much time in the 5th chapter of my book actually exploring a whole suite of different thought experiments for how society could be, because I want us to actually get thinking about this question of what sort of future are we trying to create. I think we're making a terrible mistake right now. In fact, if I get students coming into my office at MIT all the time asking for career advice, I always ask them, where do you want to be in the future? If she says to me, oh, maybe I'll be in a cancer ward, maybe I'll be in the morgue because I was stabbed, terrible approach to career planning. I want her to come in with fire in her eyes, excited about some future vision. But look at us humans. We're making exactly this pathetic mistake of only envisioning everything that could go wrong, which is a recipe for nothing other than paranoia and hypochondria, right? I just saw The Terminator with my wife, yet another dystopian movie. We need to envision what sort of future with advanced AI we would actually be excited about, so that we can steer in that direction. And people are all over the map and what they're thinking about, and most people aren't thinking very much at all. What I feel very strongly is that only if we can actually envision what we want to steer towards do we have any real chance of getting there.
Okay. I'm totally on board with your idea. I think it's really important of not what will the world look like, but what should the world look like. And I want to go back later to talk about how we can get involved in that process. But I wonder, for you, best case scenario, if you could think about the most positive impact that super intelligent AI could have on, I don't even want to say the world, I better say the universe really at this stage, then what to you would that look like?
Well, in the immediate term, first of all, I'm one of many who's lost a loved one to some disease that we were told was incurable, which is just another way of saying we hadn't been smart enough to figure out how to cure it yet, right? And if we can amplify our human intelligence with machine intelligence, we really have the ability to crack all of these today's and tomorrow's greatest problems, from curing diseases to solving our climate challenges to eliminating poverty to creating a society where we can all flourish. And in the longer term, as you mentioned, I'm a physicist, so for me, why should we be so unambitious that we feel that life should just forever be stuck on this one little planet and then go extinct next time an asteroid hits us, when we can actually have the potential with technology to flourish here on Earth for billions of years and throughout this amazing cosmos. Really, science fiction writers have underestimated how amazing our future can be once you take superintelligence into account. Everything I love about civilization is a product of intelligence, so if we can use it wisely, we can help life flourish like never before.
Going slightly more back down to earth, sort of in the more short, medium term, what does that mean for people who are alive today? In terms of, let's talk about jobs, for example. If we are seeing this incredible growth of the powers of AI, then do we need to rethink what sorts of jobs we're doing, or the types of jobs that we're recommending to children to study?
Of course, we need to rethink everything. I mean, in the immediate term, we need to give better career advice to our kids so they go into jobs that computers are bad at and will be bad at for a little while. In the longer term, if machines...
Give me a couple of examples.
So we should absolutely avoid jobs that are repetitive and structured. Don't become a driver. Don't become someone who spends most of their time looking at a computer screen processing documents in the same way. Go into jobs instead where there's a lot of unpredictable elements, where you need a lot of creativity. Go into jobs where the customer will pay a premium for you actually being a human. But in the longer term, if machines can do everything that we can for 1 penny an hour of electricity or whatever, of course, we have to do a bigger rethink as a society. Some people think it has to be a disaster if we don't have jobs. I disagree. I think if we can take this vast increase in wealth produced in terms of products and services by machines and share it properly so everybody gets better off, wonderful. We have to make sure, though, that we don't just provide people with income from this, but also meaning and purpose, which they could otherwise get from jobs. I'm hopeful we can do it. You know, children seem perfectly happy not to have jobs, as do many retired people. But what we're doing now as a society is failing to address this. We're in fact seeing instead increasing income inequality, which many economists feel is caused by technology, which causes larger and larger numbers of disenfranchised and very angry people who are getting worse off, which has given us Brexit, Donald Trump, an increasingly polarized world. So I think the sooner we take this seriously and make sure that everybody starts getting better off from technology, the brighter our future is going to be for all of us.
What do we need to be doing now? What sorts of questions should people be asking, and how can people get involved? It sounds like, as we talk about it and as I read your book, it felt like so much of this is happening now and will be happening whether we like it or not, and that really it's a pretty good time for us all to get involved in that debate about what we want AI to do, what we want it to look like, what kind of limitations we want on it, if any at all. So who are making those decisions at the moment, and what can we be doing to get more involved?
I think first we as individuals should educate ourselves about this so that we and our loved ones go into the right careers. I think we as a society need to make sure that the prosperity can get shared so everybody gets better off. I think it would be great if Britain followed countries like Finland and others doing little experiments on a regional scale with universal basic income, or maybe instead of just giving people money, use that money to hire a lot of teachers or a lot of nurses so that people actually do something meaningful for the money, which is appreciated. Another thing that I think the UK government should do is push for an international ban on lethal autonomous weapons so that all this wonderful technology can be kept as a force for good, just as the UK government pushed for a ban on biological weapons and chemical weapons. So I want AI in the future to be remembered in the same way as biology and chemistry, as sciences that made people better off rather than worse off.
So we're talking about, just to check that I understand, sort of drone technology that can attack an individual without the input of, without anyone having to be there in person.
Exactly. So today's drones are just remote control vehicles where it's still a human who decides who to kill. But what the AI community really wants to ban are machines, drones, for example, where it's actually a computer that decides, okay, this and this and this person should be killed, and then goes ahead and does that with no human in the loop whatsoever. This is something which would before long become just a race to the bottom of a bottomless pit, and when everybody can buy these with a few £100 a Bitcoin anonymously, the whole society we have is just going to descend into anarchy, really, and all the big governments are going to regret that they didn't stamp this out the same way they stamped out bioweapons. So that's a short-term thing. The United Nations is discussing it next month. I'm pretty optimistic that we can get this one right. When we go look a little bit farther ahead, I think we really need to fund very seriously AI safety research, because first of all, we've all had laptops crashing on us, which was annoying, but we don't want it to be the computers controlling our self-driving cars, self-flying airplanes, our electric power grid, or our nation's nuclear arsenal that crash, right? So we have to really get our act together and transform today's buggy and hackable computer systems into robust AI systems that you can really trust. Otherwise, all this great technology can be turned against us. And in the longer term, we have to figure out if we're going to actually have machines more intelligent than us, how to make their goals aligned with our goals. It doesn't have to be a scary thing to be in the presence of more intelligent beings, because you and I both did that when we were little. They were mommy and daddy, right? But the reason it worked out was because their goals were aligned with ours. And that doesn't come automatically. You know, we humans put a huge amount of effort into raising our own children so that they adopt our goals and values and don't become the next Adolf Hitler, but become good people. And if we as a society, as a civilization, choose to create intelligent beings which are in some sense the children of all of us, right, we better raise them really, really well. And to do this also requires answering a lot of tough technical questions which might take 30 years to answer. So I think any government that's funding AI research should also fund this kind of safety research now, so we get the answers by the time we need them, and not just start thinking about AI safety research the night before some dudes on Red Bull switch on a superintelligence.
So we need more kind of consensus, more discussion ahead of time about what good is, what our goals are, and then, I mean, once we know what they are, it's very easy, presumably, to then impose that for the time being on AI.
Actually, both of them are very hard. Figuring out what the goals should be is a very important question we all have to have, and that cannot be left to just tech nerds like myself, who are no more qualified than anyone else to say what makes a society happy and flourishing, right? But actually explaining goals to a machine is also really hard. As you can see, if you imagine just taking your future self-driving car and telling it to get you to Heathrow as fast as possible, and then you get there covered in vomit and chased by helicopters and say, no, that's not what I wanted. And it says, that's exactly what you asked for. This is an example, again, of technical AI research that's hard. I'm confident that if we start working on it now, if the government funds this kind of research so we get the brightest, most motivated people thinking about it, we can get the answers in time. But we need to start now.
Okay. Right, that's it. Go and get on with it. Sounds like we've all got a lot of questions to answer, and it's not just the tech nerds like you who have to be answering them. We all have to get on and start thinking about it.
That's why I wrote this book, because I feel that we can't just leave the decision of the entire future of humanity up to a bunch of tech nerds like us. It's everybody's future, and we should all be part of shaping it.
Thank you so much, Max, for talking us through that, and thank you for joining us for the Big Money Questions.